Hello Year 7 and welcome to your lesson on the tundra. And we're going to be looking at the characteristics of the tundra biome today. So if you remember, we started looking at cold environments. So we're looking at places which are close to the North Pole and some of them close to the South Pole as well. Tundra is mainly found in the northern part of North America, the very northern part of Europe and the northern part of Asia. Okay, we're going to be thinking about what the biome is like. In particular, if we look at our keywords, we're going to be thinking about the climate, and we're going to be thinking that about some of the adaptations that plants and animals have developed in order to survive in the tundra. Now, both of these keywords are things we've come across before when we talked about the rainforest, so hopefully this will refresh your memories on what those two things are if you're a little bit unsure. So, first of all then, we're going to look at climate. Okay, now, if you remember, the climate refers to the average weather conditions for a place. To give you an example, in January in Cornwall, we would normally expect it to be windy and wet. It's not always windy and wet, but it often is windy and wet. So, climate is worked out by calculating or collecting weather data and using that to calculate averages. So they collect weather data over a period of 30 years to come up with an average figure. So for example, if you went over the last 30 years and measured the average temperature in January in Cornwall, it would be about 5 degrees, something like that, maybe a little bit warmer. Okay, right, so one way that we often show climate is in a climate graph like this one. A graph. We can see that it's cold for a lot of the year. So from September through to end of April or middle of April, the temperature is below freezing. The average temperature is below freezing. We've then got a short summer, which is actually quite warm. And it's quite dry all year round, particularly in winter. All right, so this is the climate part of the tundra. All right, so it's cold, quite dry. Now, if you imagine for plants, that's actually quite difficult conditions to grow in. All right, so other things we need to know about the tundra then. Apart from the first 10 centimeters or so of soil, underneath that there is a permanently frozen layer which is called the permafrost. Perma, short for permanent, frost meaning it's frozen. It's often very windy, so there's very few trees around. That means that there's nothing to break up the wind, so it's often very windy. In summer it can be light for 24 hours a day, and on the other side of that, that means that in the winter it can be dark for 24 hours or more. This means it's a really harsh place for plants and animals to survive. So that's what we're going to look at now. We're going to look at some of the ways in which plants and animals have adapted in order to live in the tundra. So if you remember, an adaptation is a characteristic of a plant or an animal which helps it to survive in its habitat. In the tundra, the adaptations help plants and animals live in the cold, dry, harsh conditions. So we're going to look at plants first of all, and we've got this picture here of a plant called an Icelandic poppy, which is a relative of poppies we see here, but you can see it's much smaller. So most plants in the tundra are very small, and this is to help them avoid wind damage. If they grew tall, the wind would snap them off. So most plants are under 30 centimeters in height. Many plant species grow very close to the floor like this poppy, and is probably not more than 3 or 4 centimeters in height from the ground. Most plants grow quite quickly, so they grow, flower and set seeds within 60 days. Remember, we've only got a very short summer season. So between the end of April and September is the only time plants have really got to grow. It's only a few months, so they grow really quickly. Many plants have only got shallow roots. This is so they don't go down into the permafrost, because plants don't like their roots being frozen generally. And they've got very small leaves to avoid moisture loss. Also, if you look very closely at this picture, I hope you can see the pointer there. If you look at the stem and on the leaves, they're covered in little tiny hairs. This is to help reduce the chances of the plant drying out. So the hairs actually help protect the plant from losing moisture. Okay, so next then we're going to have a think about animal adaptations, and we've got an Arctic fox here. Now, Arctic fox has really thick fur. So animals that live in this part of the world either have really thick fur, or if you think about things like seals, they have a thick layer of blubber, which is like a fat, and this helps to keep them warm. It insulates the body and stops it from losing heat. Many animals hibernate, so they go into a prolonged sleep during the winter months when there's very little food around. But this means they have to eat a lot of food during the summer months to basically make themselves fat, so they can survive during that hibernation period in the winter. Birds and some mammals migrate to warmer areas, so they might live in the tundra during the summer, but then when the winter comes they move further south where it's warmer. And many animals like this Arctic fox have white coats or white feathers, and this is for camouflage. It means that they can't be spotted as easily by their prey and also by their predators, so it helps them to survive. Okay, so I'm sure you've got some questions. If you have, fire them my way or to Mrs. Bareham or Miss Bright, and I look forward to seeing your work. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.